If it wasn't for the true freshman, Ethan Grunkemeyer, the Jaxon Smolik injury news would be a much bigger deal for Penn State.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, a true freshman quarterback is keeping the depth chart together for Penn State football. This is Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm your host, Zach Seyko. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. And let me know in the comments what you think about the quarterback depth chart situation now. Is there's, I don't want to say pressure, but a little more responsibility here on Ethan Grunkemeyer given the Jaxon Smolik injury news. And yes, Ethan Grunkemeyer is saving the depth chart here. Jaxon Smolik's injury would have been that much more important here, and it's not insignificant, but if it was just Drew Aller and then Bo Pribula, and yes, I know Jack Lambert is in the quarterback room, but Jaxon Smolik was a heavily recruited quarterback out of high school, and so was Ethan Grunkemeyer. Now, Grunkemeyer does save the depth chart here, and you can't predict injuries, but if Grunkemeyer was playing elsewhere, was committed somewhere else, heck, I'll take it a step further. If he was not enrolled early, the Jaxon Smolik injury news becomes that much more of a deal for Penn State as far as how they were going to adjust. Grunkemeyer has now, he's working on the playbook, but knows it better. He's situated with it. It allows Grunkemeyer to build confidence here because he's going to get more reps. He's going to get more attention at practice. And so, yes, with greater responsibility comes the greater pressure as well here, but he's getting adjusted to the college speed. That's the importance of being enrolled early, is that Grunkemeyer can adjust to all of these things before the season happens and gets a head start from the other freshmen who are going to be at Penn State, at the end of May, early June. But we already know that Ethan Grunkemeyer is a really good quarterback prospect, so this just allows him to accelerate his timeline, being enrolled early and everything else. As a true freshman here, Grunkemeyer has looked great to me when I've watched him in these select practices here. Again, 10 to 15 minute viewing window, but Smolik hasn't been there for the past two practices, and now it makes a little more sense. And Grunkemeyer has looked great. He has. James Franklin has gone on to praise him and say that he's shown flashes at practice, and that's good because they are recognizing potential. They're recognizing potential. And again, James Franklin does not lie to the media. Is he going to gatekeep certain information? Absolutely. He's not going to tell us what Jaxon Smolik's injury is. We just know that he's going to be out for months. That's all we do know. And in this case, when he compliments a player or is honest about whatever, the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, a specific player, and he said that Grunkemeyer has shown flashes. So at the bottom of the depth chart, that is an emergency situation, right? Penn State's season looks a lot different here if Drew Aller and Bo Pribula are, for whatever reason, unavailable, right? I don't want to wooden desk. I don't want to speak it into an existence, right? But Ethan Grunkemeyer isn't just a placeholder here. He can be a capable quarterback if it ever got to that situation. So he's showing potential. But if Grunkemeyer were not on campus, the Smolik injury is bad news for Penn State because, like I said, Aller, Pribula, then you go to Jack Lambert, and then you don't have anything after that. Currently, the depth chart for Penn State, the 4-person depth chart, is Aller, Pribula, Smolik, and Grunkemeyer. But with Smolik out, then you have Lambert, and then after that, it is really it could really get a gloom and doom type of situation here. But Aller, remember once upon a time, right? Remember back to when Taquan Roberson was the second option here when Sean Clifford went down in 2021. Look how far the quarterback depth chart, the quarterback room, has come from that situation in 2021 when Sean Clifford went down with an injury and you wanted him to rest longer, and you didn't have that luxury, and you had to throw him back into the game when he clearly was not 100%. Penn State has that luxury this time around. And for the case of Aller and Pribula, it is important to have depth behind them because of the way they play the game. Now, this might change because Mike Yurcich was calling plays differently and everything else, but just the way that, based on what we saw in 2023, the way that Aller and Pribula like to tuck the football and run, more particularly Pribula, but just that kind of play, the way you are going to approach your quarterback position that way, where Aller and Pribula are going to run more often than maybe they should, it does put them at risk. So you need depth behind them. Again, they were healthy for the most part all of last season. I know they got some stingers here and there, but those guys, the way they play the game, you certainly need depth. As far as Jaxon Smolik's situation goes, as far as Smolik, this is a major blow for Smolik personally in terms of development. Again, this is your second year with the team. You have Ethan Grunkemeyer, who's been praised as a true freshman. Looks like, again, he can go toe-to-toe with you if you're both healthy for that quarterback 3 spot, that QB3 spot. And now you have a setback here. You're out for, at a minimum, all of spring, months from what the report says. So what does that mean? Does that mean you're coming back in July, August, September? We don't know for sure, but it's just an undisclosed, indefinite amount of time here. So from Smolik's point of view, you have Ethan Grunkemeyer right there, breathing down your neck for playing time, or at least for reps, right? I don't know about playing time necessarily, but for reps to be quarterback number 3. And if you can't fend him off, Smolik is a former Elite 11 quarterback, a higher end 3-star, so he doesn't have the same potential that you would assume from Grunkemeyer. Pribula is kind of in the same category. Andrew, we know, as the former 5-star, right? But he was a late addition to the Elite 11 camp and performed well. He was an early enrollee himself. He knows the playbook. He's matured. James Franklin has given him a lot of praise as well, like Ethan Grunkemeyer. I mean, Franklin was not afraid to praise Jaxon Smolik at times when talking about the quarterback, specifically with the deep throwing ability too, given all the concerns around the deep passing game last season, right? Let's forget that even happened. But the talent is there for Smolik. However, when you have comparable talent right there with you, Ethan Grunkemeyer, we're all going to not, if we're comparing here, it's almost apples to oranges in this case. Okay. Grunkemeyer seems to have more of the potential here, being that he's a 4-star and was a top 10 quarterback, and Smolik, kind of had a late rise through the rankings and everything. I don't want to get into a conversation here. Okay, so what does Smolik do if he doesn't really have a path to the playing time at Penn State? I don't want to sit here and say, well, he should transfer because he's injured. That's not, no. What complicates this with the injury, the injury adds to the insult here, because Smolik's timeline is not exactly ideal at Penn State. Drew Aller starts presumably for 2024, and then goes into the next NFL draft in 2025. Then Pribula takes over as a redshirt junior for 2025 and 2026, right? Is Pribula going to take that much of a step forward where he goes into the NFL draft? So now you're looking at a case where Smolik would be the starting quarterback as a 4th-year player in 2027. When I think he's capable, again, he was committed to Tulane. That would have probably been the quarterback of the future for them, for the Green Wave, and he'd opt to go to Penn State. But with Ethan Grunkemeyer and other top quarterback prospects that are going to be waiting in the wings, and one of them, which we're going to talk about in the second segment here with Matt Zollers, his timeline gets a little murky here, and this injury just does not help. He can work his tail off in the film room and make sure that he's a locker room guy and he's supportive along the way. And I know that he will be, but he's from Iowa. Like I said, he was committed to Tulane once upon a time. If I'm being honest, I don't know that Smolik ever plays a meaningful down for Penn State. And this should be the beginning of Grunkemeyer actually passing him on the depth chart. It's an unfortunate circumstance here, but it is honest about what is Jaxon Smolik's outlook versus Ethan Grunkemeyer. Quarterback depth chart is in good shape because of Grunkemeyer and Smolik. Hopefully he can bounce back from this, right? Hopefully it's not too serious and that he can continue to have a nice college football career. Now, Matt Zollers is getting ready to commit. April 4th is his commitment day. 4-star quarterback, top 5 in the nation, and he's right in the state of Pennsylvania. Will he choose the Nittany Lions? What is the impact of that if he doesn't? That's coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than a billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire, gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing a lot of hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So be one of them. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? You have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all of the screaming, all the shouting. Locked On Sports today brings you campus analysis, opinions, and news, and it's streaming 24/7 on YouTube and on the free Fire TV Channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Zollers, four-star quarterback in the state of Pennsylvania, is set to commit on Thursday, April 4th. This episode will be up on Tuesday, April 2nd. So about within that 48-hour window here, depending on when and where you are listening to this and watching this back. But this commitment is a big deal. So I just get done talking about, okay, Jaxon Smolik, Ethan Grunkemeyer, not so much of a big deal because of the circumstances, but this one is a big deal. In the age of the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, NIL, you need as many quarterbacks as you can on the roster. Because, yes, you could have a scenario where any of them, right? Bo Prabula could transfer, Jaxon Smolik, Ethan Grunkemeyer, right? Any of them could transfer. You have Beckham Kritza already committed in the class of 2025. You need quarterbacks. You need signal callers. And one like Matt Zollers, you definitely need committed in the fold, right? He becomes arguably your best player in this class of 2025. Again, depending on what Penn State does, be optimistic that he doesn't finish as your best player. But if he does, that is a good quality prospect. You need as many quarterbacks on your roster because of the new age of college football. Zollers is one of the best Pennsylvania quarterback prospects in recent memory. So we're talking over the past 5 years, maybe even go back a decade or so. And Zollers is one of the, out of Pennsylvania, best quarterback prospects. And that's why this is a must-have commitment. So aside from the fact of, hey, this is the era of college football you're in, you haven't had this kind of quarterback prospect in your backyard in quite some time for Penn State to land a commitment from. Top 5 quarterback nationally, again, depending on what rankings you look at, and SEC schools want him badly. He's been talking to Alabama. He has Georgia. He has Missouri in a part of his top 4 with Penn State and Pitt. Brother goes to Pitt, so I will respect them here as a contender for his services. But SEC schools have been offering him like crazy. This isn't somebody that's just hiding away. He is on the national radar. Missouri in particular, if you listen to some of the other national recruiting pundits, Missouri is making a strong push for him here. They have a really good relationship with Zollers. I mean, Zollers, when we talk about him purely as a football player, he's probably a really good person, but Zollers, great size, 6'3.5", probably you'll top out at 6'4", maybe 6'5". I don't know the genetics, but 205 pounds. That is a good starting point. A high school prospect easily can add 25, 30 more pounds, and then he has a significant upside just from his build. Great athleticism to go with that build. So he's not going to be a dual threat quarterback, according to any of them, 24/7 on 3 rivals. He should be, though, just with the way that he's able to move, the way that he's able to extend plays. So he's not listed as a dual threat quarterback, but if you watch the film, you couldn't tell me differently. So he's not a dual threat, but he definitely should be considered one here. The kid can move. The kid can move. Very good arm strength to go along with it. Like I said, he can create on his own. He can ad lib. You don't need to put him into a box and say, okay, follow this step by step by step. He can extend plays, and that's what he's very good at. It does come at a cost. does come at a cost, right? He might do too much at times, but I think Zollers, with the way that he can create that, the benefits outweigh the costs in this case. I've already mentioned Penn State already has Kritza committed in the class of 2025, but you need a second quarterback. You need two quarterbacks. I don't want to look at them as Kritza's the first or Zollers is the second, right? You need two quarterbacks. Whoever commits first, second, however you rank them, first or second, you just need two. You need two passers in this case. And Zollers becomes your headliner prospect in the class of 2025. I know I get done saying here that however you rank them, that's fine, first or second. But Zollers, because of the pedigree that he has with him, it becomes the face of this class of 2025. He really does. And it's a major problem if Penn State doesn't land him because of that pedigree, because of the ranking, because of the notoriety, and you're going up against fierce competition. Again, Georgia in the top four here, Missouri, Pitt, Georgia. One of these things is not like the other here. Those are your top four, and SEC schools, Big Ten schools have been offering him this entire time. Penn State was one of the first ones, one of the first major schools to offer him here. But it's down to those four. In my opinion, let's narrow the race even further because Georgia's interested in other quarterbacks. But Missouri, with their quarterback situation, with just they have fewer quarterbacks on their roster moving forward, Zollers has a more ideal path to playing time if he were to commit to the Tigers, which makes this interesting. But, and again, the good relationship element, he does, again, brothers of Pitt. So I'm not going to count the Panthers out there from the family, still close to home sentimental side of it. This is a tough battle. I like Penn State's chances. I really do. Penn State versus Missouri, though, just given I will say this. He has an easier time of getting onto the football field with Missouri than he would at Penn State because you have Kritza, you have Grunkemeyer, still Smolik. I know I said what I said, but Smolik is still on the team. And then Aller and Prabula. I know they're getting ready, to move on and be the veterans, right? But towards the future, that's the outlook there. Missouri does not have that same kind of setup. And we're going to pivot and go to a little bit of basketball here. So that's all quarterback in the first two segments. But basketball, transfer portal hasn't been too active for Penn State, but they got one despite losing a few players to the portal itself. Let's discuss the impact of that here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to its peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks to exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. You have the subtraction of Demetrius Lilley, and now you have the addition of Kachi Nzeh. As we talk some Penn State men's basketball in this final segment here on Locked On Nittany Lions. If you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. Obviously, talking more than just football on the show as we finish up with Mike Rhoades and company. So Demetrius Lilley out. In steps Kachi Nzeh. And it almost, just generally speaking, feels like an even trade just based on the averages, similar size. Now, they're different types of basketball players. Nzeh, I would say, is a lot more athletic than Lilley, but Lilley does have the size advantage, 6'10", 245 pounds to Nzeh's 230. I like Nzeh's game. I do a lot. And Demetrius Lilley just recently committed to LaSalle. So this was a move probably to get him closer to home. Mike Rhoades and Lilley probably had a conversation about playing time, what that would look like, that Lilley might view himself as a starter, but it's probably not going to be happening at Penn State. And LaSalle, was definitely a huge player in his recruitment when he was coming out of high school. So this one just makes sense for Lilley. But if I'm being honest, in the scheme of things, my preference, if I had to pick one between Lilley and Nzeh, I'm going to go with Lilley. I've said this on previous podcasts, and Adam Sheets as a guest, or just kind of talking about it as, solo host for the show, that Demetrius Lilley had grown up a lot, had become a serious basketball player at the Big Ten level. And that was because Mike Rhoades and company and the coaching staff were able to turned his career around. This was somebody that I don't want to call him an afterthought per se on the Penn State roster, but had really no recognition when Micah Shrewsbury was running the show. And then Mike Rhoades says, hey, we got to get Lilley into shape. We're going to change some things around. And then Lilley gets serious playing time in his second season with the Nittany Lions. So kudos to him for toughing it out. Again, that's not your coach. You weren't recruited by Mike Rhoades, and you stay at Penn State and make the most of it, and you do very well. And I've argued down the stretch of the season that Lilley's absence because of the injury issues were what held Penn State back from just moving a step further. Again, that depth behind Kudus Wahab was so important, and you saw that without Lilley on the floor, giving him 10, 15 minutes. That was very, very underrated. Penn State missed out on that, and that's why their season, part of the reason why their season ended the way they did. So personally, my preference is Demetrius Lilley. He knows Mike Rhoades' system up front. He's been at Penn State, would have been at Penn State for 3 years running. I thought he could have been a really good quality bench player for the Nittany Lions, being that sixth or that seventh man, and that's not going to happen. So Nzeh steps in and just has a different type of game. Okay. Just more athletic. I like the way he drives to the basket. A lot of his highlights, the few that he does have at Xavier, are him just driving down the lane. He is sick, and when he's listed at 6'8", 230 pounds, and you're like, okay, he's a center. He's listed as a center. 6'8" is not that tall as a center, but he plays bigger than his height. He plays taller than his height. So the athleticism really bodes well. He's very strong. He's athletically gifted. Nzeh is a good addition. Again, he fills the role of Demetrius Lilley, where he's going to play about 12 to 15 minutes. Miles Goodman is going to be your main five, the true freshman prospect, all the way on the West Coast. So you need some complementary pieces. And who's to say Penn State can't get another, not just a rotational player, but somebody who can contribute serious minutes. But right now, this move doesn't change anything for Penn State men's basketball. It's a comparable trade in terms of what Lilley was providing in his own right and to what Nzeh will project to. You're getting about 10, 12, maybe 15 minutes, depending on the night, of somebody that is going to be a rotational player, a bench player. Nzeh's not going to come in and start with they're going to have the all-senior starting lineup here with those guys returning. But that's what you're getting here. This one doesn't move the needle for me. It's important because you want to have a rounded out bench, but it doesn't change anything. Nothing. The needle does not move from Lilley to Nzeh. They have different qualities and a different skill set, but kind of the same thing in terms of contribution, how many points, how many rebounds you're going to get. And hopefully Nzeh can at least surpass what Lilley was giving you in year two. Penn State definitely needs to be, with 3 more scholarships open, certainly needs to be more active in the transfer portal here. That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Got a lot more recruiting to talk about with Matt Zollers getting ready to commit. We're going to have Brian Smith, the recruiting expert for Locked On, back on the show very soon to talk about just that and some other recruiting news for Penn State football and spring practice. Another one will be there. Get to see the Penn State football team in action, and all those recaps and coverage will be right here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And don't forget, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, and now you can find it in the free Fire TV channels app.